Hello, everybody. Hope you missed us. And we are back. Welcome to another edition of the Just Mets podcast. My name is Andrew Claudio. That is Rich MacLeod. Today, we're going to go over some of the topics that we missed over the last couple of weeks. One big one being that the city of Boston took giant L's yesterday in the sports world. No beef really with the Red Sox. They made a trade, so continue to battle it out with the Yankees, of course. But if you're a New York Jets fan or a New York Knicks fan, I'm sure you enjoyed yesterday as much as Rich and I did. We'll also take some of your questions from the chat. So please, if you're watching, please leave a comment or a question in the chat. We greatly appreciate it. And as always, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Remember to like this video. And if you're listening on the podcast feed later, get it out the way early. A 5-star rating and a review on Apple or on Spotify. Rich, long time no speak. Happy day after Boston was destroyed day.
Can we take 5 seconds to laugh at the city of Boston? Where'd you park your fucking car?
There you go. There goes college soccer. There you go.
Oh boy.
Oh man, that was fun.
Like for most of America, that was a not very entertaining Super Bowl. Like totally understand that. But if you were just in it for the hate watch, like Jet fans, and I think a lot of people who are still not over the dynasty era Patriots, where they didn't want to see that again so soon. Pretty entertaining day for me. I was with my family, so me and my dad and my brother, who are all just like desperately rooting for the Patriots to lose, were jumping up and down when at the time it looked like a strip sack. It wound up being overturned and called a pick six. They really put the final bit of dirt on the coffin. That was a great moment, great Sunday. Shout out to the Knicks too, who pretty thoroughly beat down the Boston Celtics. So all in all, good day if you're a Boston hater.
Absolutely. Only thing that could have made it better is if somehow Philadelphia lost yesterday. But we'll take a day in which Boston loses. And as football season ends, that usually signals for me. I'm sure it signals it for you, and I hope it signals for the rest of you listening or watching that baseball season is now officially up next. Pitchers and catchers officially report, I believe, in 2 days, if not tomorrow. For everything that's out on social media, I think all the Mets are there at the moment. It seems as if the whole team has just made their way down to Port St. Lucie. A lot of the pitchers are getting some clips out there. Shout out to SNY. Shout out to the Mets social team. We do want to kind of discuss, after this little hiatus that we had, some of the topics that we missed. Thankfully, Rich, not really anything important was something that we missed worth discussing. I think the first important thing to discuss, in my opinion, Rich, let's see if you agree with the most important thing that happened since the last time you and I were together, is this. Keith Hernandez is officially back at SNY on a 2-year contract.
Yes.
I don't know if you have the details. I'll let you go through them if they do. But the gist that I remember reading is that he's back for 2 years. It's like the load management Mitchell Robinson schedule, where
it's like 20, 30 less games than he had been doing a year.
Right. So, look, the man is not a spring chicken anymore. He is in his 70s. And listen, I've always thought this with Keith. The game continues to change in ways he doesn't like. I can't imagine he wants to keep calling this version of baseball much longer, but he obviously knows he is a beloved figure in the Mets world. Your quick thoughts on Keith Hernandez officially being back in our lives, that this season of turnover that David Stearns put upon us didn't include the SNY booth of Gary, Keith, and Ron.
Yes, in an offseason where we lost Edwin Diaz and Pete Alonso and Brandon Nimmo and Jeff McNeil, we do not lose Keith Hernandez. One small correction, 3-year deal. So
3-year deal, even better.
And, the Mets don't like to give out deals more than 3 years. So it fits right into the David Stearns philosophy. But yeah, I mean, it's for all we know, this could be the final 3-year stretch that we have of this booth that we've, it's easy to take for granted that for most of the time we've been Met fans, especially if you're around our age, like this has always been the booth. This is how it's been since I was 15 years old. And you kind of take for granted that eventually that won't be the case anymore. And the guys you grew up with will be replaced and it'll never quite be the same. So the fact that we still get that for these maybe last 3 years, I'm grateful for that. And I feel like I'll kind of, I don't know, just appreciate it a little bit more in the moment, knowing that, this stuff isn't going to last forever.
I think the cool part about both of our experiences, because you're right, since we were 15 and when SNY officially had its inception in 2006, this was the booth. It was Gary, Keith, and Ron. It was Chris Cotter that was the field reporter on the mic first for one season. Then it was Kevin the voice of Fox Football and obviously some Fox studio shows, Kevin Burkhardt, for the next, I want to say 9 years. And it's been Gelbs ever since. We've had very little turnover in our broadcast experience. I will say for me, remembering the UPN days and the MSG days and the the Channel 11, the WPIX games, which I know they still air games on it used to be WB, now it's just the WPIX games on Saturday. I remember Tom Seaver as the guy that was my voice of Mets games, and it was Gary Thorne and Dave O'Brien, who's now the voice of the Red Sox, and I got like a mix of Fran Healy, and then when Keith would show up, it was the very special, oh wow, Keith is back. It's been nice to have some consistency. I think if I'm thinking about my mortality and I'm wondering how the Mets look past 3 years and who could potentially replace Keith, with respect to Todd Zeal and Daniel Murphy and Jerry Blevins, who I think are the three main voices we've heard that have filled in every now and then. Don't think anybody's been terrible from the three of them. Can I actually give you a hot take, Rich, who I wish there was a world that this could happen, but obviously his physical limitations won't let him. There was a thing that the Mets put out. It was the radio voice, Keith. How do you pronounce his last name? Rad. Yeah, Keith Rad. And it was David Wright and Daniel Murphy, and they were just like doing a watch along on YouTube of Daniel Murphy's games from the 2015 playoff run. And I found David Wright a delightful listen, and I was like, you know what? That if there's ever a world where you lose Keith, I wish there was a world you could replace him with David, but I'm assuming this is someone that can't travel because of the back condition that we all know he has. Point is, I echo what you were saying, that I'm going to enjoy and cherish and remember to enjoy and cherish every time Keith gets upset that teams play smarter baseball now.
Keithisms.
Yeah, the good fundies of it all.
Yeah, saying the thing he's not supposed to say because he thought it was a commercial break.
Right, right.
Things getting lit, if I remember correctly.
Any references to the 80s. Yeah, I'm here for enjoying Keith Hernandez as much as we can over the next couple years. The next thing, I'll go in order that I have it on the StreamYard. So Carlos Beltran, we did talk about this, that he's going to make the Hall of Fame, that he was elected. His hat hadn't been decided yet, but he will officially go into the Hall of Fame wearing a Mets cap. And so I was lucky enough to have Evan Roberts on Knicks Film School, and I would be remiss if I didn't ask him about like a Mets question, because who cares about the Brooklyn Nets? And I asked this question, and I know you and I have talked about this, and I think it's the immediate response when talking about Carlos Beltran being a Hall of Famer and going in as a Met is, don't they have to retire his number? And I've gone back and forth with some Mets fans that are saying no. Rich, I'll just say this. I don't know how you don't retire the man's number, especially when you're a franchise with 3 Hall of Famers that have their cap, their cap is your logo, is your team. I don't know how you don't retire one of them. So I'm of
Yeah.
the belief that you should retire his number. Where are you?
I think you have to. I think getting into the Hall of Fame and going in with this team on the cap, like it's kind of like an automatic bid at that point. So yeah, I mean, look, you don't have to like it. I don't really know the reasoning against it. He's the best center fielder in the history of the franchise. One of the best position players that they have ever had. He's their best free agent signing of all time. Yeah, the really bad strikeout in the really bad spot. He also is a big reason why the Mets got to that point that year. He could have easily won the MVP in 2006. Got the Mets Zach Wheeler even when he left, was classy, never said a bad word about them. He's still working with them now, even after they fired him when he was the scapegoat for the Astros thing as a manager. Carlos Beltran is like a lifelong Met, and that will be cemented now till the end of time. I think it's time to embrace the guy, and sorry to Tyrone Taylor, but you're going to have to give up number 15 this year because, you know, I'm sure he'll have a number change at some point this spring, and whether they do the ceremony later this summer or they try to wait till next year, I don't think we'll see anybody wear number 15 from today onward.
Do you know, Rich MacLeod, the players who have worn number 15 for the Mets since Carlos Beltran? Do you want to try and take a guess at a couple of them?
I can get, I think, 3.
Okay.
So obviously Tyrone Taylor is wearing it right now.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Matt Reynolds wore number 15.
That is correct.
There was a point where Travis d'Arnaud wore number 15. I believe that was his first number. After that, it's pretty murky. I don't know if did Tim Tuffle as a coach wear 15. I don't think so. I think he wore his.
They don't have that on the page that I pulled up, so maybe. I don't know.
I don't think he did. Beltran left the Mets when? 2011, 2012?
Yep. Peak Madoff.
Pre Matt Reynolds. I'm not sure. I'm sure there's somebody in there, but I think that's where I'm done.
So I think the most famous or most notable name on this list is Luis Guillorme. Fan favorite middle infielder, utility 15. Infielder. He wore number 15.
I don't know why I didn't remember him wear. That wasn't his main number, was it?
Might have changed the number at some point, but he was in 2018. Oh, because he also wore number 13 with the Mets. So that's
what I remember him with. Yeah.
So at some point, he wore number 15. In 2019, it looks like, when he had his notable home run against the Nationals and then stayed with the Mets for a couple of years, he wore number 13. So that's where that comes in. Just there's this who's who of names on the list of people who've worn 15. I actually think the second most notable Met here is Tyrone Taylor. Before him, it's Danny Mendick. Let's see if you remember this name.
Oh, good one.
Devin Marrero.
Yes, he was once a big Red Sox prospect and did not pan out.
Indeed. Cameron Maben. Juan Lagares when he came back to the Mets. So he didn't wear – Juan Lagares didn't wear
he
number
wore 12.
15. He wore 12. You're right. Won his Gold Glove. Then left the Mets – like in free agency, and then wore number. Oh no, I remember what happened. He wore number 12. Then Beltran got the manager job, and then the pandemic happened. He didn't get he obviously wasn't the manager anymore, and he wore 15, I think, to honor him. Regardless, in 2020, Juan Lagares wore number 15, and then it's Guillermo Heredia, Brian Dozier. And then
Brian Dozier was a Met. I don't even remember that.
This is the 2020 Mets, the COVID shortened season. That,
oh wow!
Yeah. And then we go Guillorme, Travis d'Arnaud. I usually think I know every Met that has happened in the past since I've been watching the team. Never heard of a name Fred Lewis. You could tell me.
Vaguely remember.
Yeah. And then Val Pascucci.
Valentino Pascucci.
Yes.
Excellent pull.
Do you know the name of the player who wore number 15 right before Carlos Beltran in 2004? Notable midseason trade that the Mets made in 2004.
Is that
Played outfield too. Played right
that
field.
Xavier Nady?
No, so they had Nady in 06 because they traded Mike Cameron for him.
Right.
Then 2004, though, they traded for Richard Hidalgo, former Astro.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, interesting.
So, anyway, I'm with you. Retire number 15. Makes no sense not to.
They will.
Steve Cohen just went and retired literally everybody that he grew up watching in the 80s.
Yeah.
Might as well retire Carlos Beltran. Just let's get the trend started of people who played in the 2000s. I understand David just had his number retired, and that was obvious. But now let's start to retire some more recent Mets. Now, I will say this, and I know how complicated it is for everybody. I do think it's done at 15 for a while because I don't think Reyes is next. I don't. I think the next.
You can't.
So this is a question. Who's the next Met after Beltran to potentially get his number retired? And I'll let you could continue the thought if you want to say. You said you can't with Reyes. I understand the reasons why you can't. I also have said, like, Darryl Strawberry has his number retired. So, like, we have to
one wrong. Well, one wrong doesn't make a right.
But, like, we're acknowledging then that the reasons to not retire Reyes would also lean into that, which is why if you're going to have that, then we need to just establish the criteria. Regardless, I don't think Reyes has enough support to end up getting his number retired anyway.
No, it's. I think we're going to have a pretty long. I'd say I think we're going to have a long gap. But it wouldn't surprise me if one of these older guys comes back around at some point. If they want to do another guy from the 80s that they haven't retired yet. I could see that happening. There's nobody I would put, but if you told me in 3 years they retired Gary Carter's number, like, would it surprise you? Like, no. That aside, I think anybody in the last, you want to say 20, 25 years with the Mets, I don't think anyone will get their number retired from that group until Jacob deGrom, which will probably be a while from now.
You took my answer. My two answers, I guess, would be the next number will either be number 8 or number 48 that I think the Mets retire. And it's a shame that 8 would be posthumous, and that like his whole family would have to be there to just represent Gary Carter, who passed away in the late 2010s. But I guess maybe the mid 2010s. That's right, because it was the Santana no-hitter had all the 8s. Regardless, if it's not Gary, then it's probably deGrom will be the next. Listen, for all we know, it could be 20 is the next number that's retired. If deGrom goes ahead and has a more notable Rangers career, and we're stuck honoring Pete Alonso in several years because his contract with the Orioles went awry, and we had to get him back as a DH. Okay, that I think covers the Beltran conversation. I think I just need to talk to you because I haven't really talked to you about this yet, about the David Stearns press tour that happened while the Mets completed all their big moves. There was a big expose, I'll say, in the New York Post. Joel Sherman did some good reporting on this, and we got a timeline of everything that happened this offseason to when they first decided what the plan was going to be or what was the attempt to be. As well as the negotiations with Pete Alonso and Brandon Nimmo. Then the exact same quotes and really the exact same timeline was said to Will Sammon in The Athletic, and it was very clear that Stearns made himself available now that the bigger picture has been able to be seen. If I could give some bullet points, Rich, and then you can just kind of tell me which one you found the most fascinating. It's been a minute since I've read it, and I just pulled it up, so I'm skimming. But the emphasis was made in both of these articles that the Brandon Nimmo waiving his no trade clause and trading Brandon Nimmo was the most important thing to unlock the offseason. That they went into the offseason saying, if we want to make any significant changes, it starts with trading Brandon Nimmo. And they identified Simeon right away. They talked to Texas right away. And if Brandon Nimmo says no, that their offseason then becomes a little more handcuffed. The moment Brandon Nimmo said yes, that unlocked their offseason and allowed them to make this pivot to run prevention that they talked about. The Pete Alonso negotiations, it sounds like they were more in on Pete than maybe you or I assumed or realized. That they had talked to Pete Alonso about coming back, a 3-year structure, and the big thing that from what I read was that he would, if he were to come back to the Mets, he would be DHing 5 out of 7 days or 4 out of 7 days, 4 out of 6 games per week, but primarily a DH. And Pete was on board. And the gist I get is that they thought the market would also dictate 3 years is the way that the teams will try to get Pete Alonso back. And then they will go to a 4th, and that will be the way that they get Pete Alonso to return, is that, here, we'll give you a 4th year, Pete. And then the Orioles just came and said, here's 155, and that's why the Mets didn't make an offer. They were like, we're not going like that far past our best offer that was going to be there. So it seems like the negotiations for Pete Alonso, it's really just one team. It's honestly what we said, Rich. The number may not have been where we were, but I'll just personally hand up here. I'm a fan, so I wanted to be reckless, a little more reckless with Steve Cohen's money. But it sounds like what we said was it's just going to take one team that has to step in and be like, here's a crazy offer, Pete. And according to the market, a crazy offer for Pete Alonso was 5 years, 155. Also sounds like they were very in on Kyle Tucker from the moment they traded Brandon Nimmo. Also sounds like they had been talking to Bo Bichette a month before they traded Brandon Nimmo, or a little before they traded Brandon Nimmo. The only question I would have, because it was made that they thought that they had the inside track to Tucker, and then when they lost him, they were like still talking to Bo Bichette's representation and his people beforehand, when the Kyle Tucker decision was looming. I guess my only question would be, if Tucker chooses the Mets, did that exclude them from also signing Bo Bichette? You know, like was it one or the other, or could there have been a world where we get news on Kyle Tucker and he comes to the Mets, and then the next day, and they're signing Bo Bichette? Talk about those emergency live streams. And then, of course, the Freddie Peralta signings or trade was exactly how we kind of discussed it, that they identified the 2 prospects that they wanted, and once Milwaukee said, okay, let's do who's the righty that they also got in the Peralta deal?
Tobias Myers.
Tobias Myers and Freddie Peralta for the 2 prospects. Shout out to Jet Williams and Brandon Sprode. And we have ourselves an off season, Rich. It sounds like it's something that required some patience, and I applaud David Stearns for it. I wish one of the people writing on these things would have drilled him a little bit harder on the Diaz negotiations, but it's neither here nor there. What did you find the most fascinating from these 2 articles?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that they were in on Pete more than we thought that they were, I thought was just interesting. It had kind of sounded like they had never really made him an offer, that it was so obvious that he was going to leave that it just made me think that there was like very little engagement and discussion there. And, this was the first time that we had heard something different than that. So I thought that was interesting. And the other thing is just I find it interesting in a different way, just because the Brandon Nimmo bit about this unlocking their entire offseason, everything that they wound up being able to do kind of stemmed from that turning point. And I mean, when you and I first started doing this at the start of the offseason, right before Nimmo got traded, that was the reason we threw out for, potentially investigating that. We just didn't think they'd be able to pull it off. But we were like, man, if they were somehow able to trade Nimmo and get him off the books for the next 5 years, the Mets would be able to do so many things. There'd be so much room for activities.
Right.
Shout out to Step Brothers. And that was exactly what wound up happening, which I think is it's very fascinating to see it through from that point, before it had even happened, all the way to now, to see what the full picture is. And for the Mets to themselves admit, like, yeah, that completely changed what we were able to do this winter.
Yeah, I would be curious just to see a timeline of what they do if Brandon Nimmo says no. I guess we didn't even mention that 9 could get retired someday. Like, that Brandon Nimmo's number could potentially end up in the rafters at Citi Field. I do wonder. Look, I have no idea how real the clubhouse issues were. As somebody who's been hearing a lot about the locker room issues with the New York Knicks over the course of really the last 2 months, the fact that, like, I think bad play leads to some of your most toxic chemistry issues and your worst locker room frustrations. And the Mets had some really poor play over the final 3.5 months of the season. So if one can be the cause and then lead to the effect, like, they won a lot in 2024. It's very easy to have a great locker room when all you're doing is winning.
Mm-hmm.
I do think there is something there with the attention that Lindor got and how he was being halted up or raised up on a pedestal as, like, the next captain and the leader of the team. And Nimmo's like, I was here first. And the fact that he wanted to be like, this is in his mind, it seems like this was Nimmo's team. And like, I think he, from the different reporting that we've gotten, had to accept, no, this is actually, like, we're going to go ahead with Lindor and Soto as the core of this team. Probably made it a little easier for him to now go to Texas and, hang out with Jacob deGrom and get to play right field, apparently, in Texas. So I guess we owe Brandon Nimmo a thank you if this team ever wins a World Series, because they were able to unlock an offseason that changed the franchise.
Shout out.
That gets said in his, like, number retirement ceremony. Thank you, Brandon Nimmo, for all you did for the franchise and helping this team turn things around when they were allowed to trade you and not have to pay the final 5 years of your contract.
Yeah, he could get an honorary ring at that point.
Yeah.
Shout out to Brandon Nimmo. Sorry that the halftime show wasn't to your liking yesterday.
I'm sure the one he watched was. I think, the Pete stuff is just that they were actually in on Pete was actually the most encouraging thing. That
it's just nice to know.
Yeah, I've been able to. I don't know if you've had this yet, Rich, but I've been able to actually watch Pete Alonso content again. He went to this random Baltimore, like, O's thing, like it was some Birdland thing because they're birds in Baltimore, and
right.
He's being Pete and he's being goofy and he's answering questions like a big goofball would, big polar bear. And I'm just like, all right, yeah, you're in a better place that was willing to pay you. It's a business. I'm glad you found that security for your family. And I'm able to now move forward with what I think can be considered a B+ to an A- offseason for the Mets, which I guess last but not least was completed with a couple of moves. So I'm glad we decided not to go live for the Mets signed Craig Kimbrel to a minor league contract news. But Mets signed, I think, future Hall of Famer, right? He's going to make the Hall of Fame.
I think so.
So future Hall of Famer Craig Kimbrel to a minor league deal. I believe it's one of those mutual options where if he doesn't make the major league team after a certain number of days, he can opt out and go test free agency again, but this is an invite to spring training. The reliever, whose name I'm blanking on, that they signed right after the Freddie Peralta, or maybe right before the Freddie Peralta trade that we discussed, as well as Tobias Myers, as well as now Kimbrel. I think they're finding like Devin Williams insurance. Like if he doesn't have the year that we think he might be able to, or David Stearns believes he's able to, as a closer, again, you're going to need to find ninth inning options. And one happens to be one of the greatest closers ever. I will just get out in front of this and say I want no part of Craig Kimbrel in the ninth inning or in an important inning in the playoffs as of right now. If he's an overqualified middle reliever, I think I'm okay with it. I don't even want it to be like the new Reed Garrett. If he's your new Stanek, I think I'm actually okay with that. You know, a lot of scary moments. Just ask a Red Sox fan, just ask a Phillies fan what it's like to have Craig Kimbrel in important spots. I'm okay with it as a minor league invite, though, Rich, just to see what he's still got left.
Yeah, it's funny to say this about a guy who like very well could not make the roster out of spring training and get released. But like can't you totally see Craig Kimbrel getting some big outs in the 7th and 8th inning for the Mets at some point this year? Like I can picture it in my head. And look, we've seen what David Robertson has done in his old age, though he just retired. He was pretty impactful for the Phillies late last year, is really their second best reliever that they had. Kimbrel didn't pitch very much last year. He was actually pretty solid when he did, but I think he made like 10, 12 appearances. It was very minimal last season. The fastball's still there. It's not going to hit 100 at this point in his career, but upper 90s fastball still can get swings and misses. And yeah, I think he just adds it's a nice wild card depth piece for the bullpen. And you can see if a guy with Hall of Fame talent who still throws hard can put together one more solid year out of the bullpen.
Last year, for those who don't know, he threw one inning with the Atlanta Braves and then threw 13 games, appeared in 13 games through 11 innings for the Houston Astros, and had a 2.45 ERA. With the Astros in particular, had a 13.1 strikeout per 9 inning ratio, which would be one of the best in baseball. For his career, he has a 14 K per 9, which is going to be the case for him to make the Hall of Fame. Listen, we talked about this on Patreon. There's going to be just a stretch of evaluating all these closers, because we were talking about Francisco Rodriguez and his Hall of Fame case, and he has a very low K per 9 rate, strikeout per 9 innings rate, especially when you compare it to this run of pitchers we're about to see become eligible, like Aroldis Chapman, Edwin Diaz, Josh Hader, obviously Craig Kimbrel, Kenley Jansen, like all of these older closers that just all they did was get strikeouts. And it's not Mariano, who just never gave up base runners. It's the alternative where you might get some home runs or some base runners off these guys, but they feasted on strikeouts during the launch angle era of guys being okay, not always trying to put the ball in play. So it'll be look, I agree with you. This is a very strange wild card of he could make the team and be productive, or this could be a weird 5 minutes that we spent talking about Craig Kimbrel when he didn't even make the team.
Be one of those where we're like, remember when Craig Kimbrel was on the Mets the last 3 months of his career?
It's the Malcolm Brogdon conversation, you know?
Can you believe that? Brogdon?
Can you believe that? Remember we had a backup point guard and then he retired, and now Tyler Kolek and Jose Alvarado are in our lives. So, yeah. MJ Melendez, what do you know about him, Rich?
Not a lot. I know that this past season he didn't play very much at the major league level. Previous to that, though, he's got like a decent amount of pop for the kind of player he is. I believe he hit at least 15 home runs 3 straight seasons before last year. So there's a little bit something there. I remember him on the Royals as this kind of like pesky kind of player, but to say I am like intimately familiar with MJ Melendez. Not really. He's the only other thing I really know about him is he's an outfielder, mostly like left field at this point, but he's played some catcher randomly in his career. So I guess some people have thrown out some, he could be your third emergency catcher if anything were ever to happen to Alvarez or Torrens in a game. I don't know a ton more than that.
I gotta be honest, you know more than me. I knew he had some pop. Is really the only thing. It's like the 100th percentile of what Tyrone Taylor could be at the plate.
Yeah,
but not anything close to what he could as a glove. And I think that's what I'm having. I was surprised. This is a major league deal that they signed him to. It's a 1 year, $1.5 million contract that they signed. A guy that, like you said, played in 23 games last year, had a 0.83 batting average. I don't even need to look up his on base or slugging to try and add better context to be like, we don't care about batting average. If you're batting at 0.83, you're not very good. And like was never that great of a hitter as is, but did have, like you said, 18 home runs his rookie year, 16 his second year, 17 his third year. These are some Anthony Volpe numbers that we're looking at through his first 3 seasons in the majors. I think, look, there's an upside to it if it works out. I thought they would go a different direction with their additional outfield spot if they were looking for some depth. I got to be honest, this tells me Carson Bench isn't going to make the opening day roster, personally. I don't know if I'm making the one-to-one connection incorrectly, but is that a fair connection to make, Rich? That them signing an outfielder to a major league deal means they're going to let Bench start the year in AAA?
If Bench lights it up in spring training, I don't think something like this necessarily prohibits them from putting him on the roster anyways. I think they'll let it play out. And I mean, look, this could be the continuation of a trend for David Stearns signing depth middle infielders to major league deals before the season who wind up barely playing at all. And in David Stearns' first season in 2024, the guy playing that part was Joey Wendell. Last year, it was Nick Madrigal. Not his fault. He got injured in spring training, but that was a 1-year major league deal. We thought both these guys would be playing a very similar role. MJ Melendez, kind of the outfield version of that, I guess. But seems like a somewhat similar vein there. And what is it, like a 1-year, $2 million contract?
Yeah, 1.5, I thought. But regardless, it's a 1-year deal. And someone in the comments, shout out to the Green Mystique. Apparently, there's an option too, so you could potentially. Green Mystique, we'll look it up too. But if you have it is it a player option or is it a team option, or is it one of those mutual vesting options where both parties can figure it out?
You should also still have minor league options potentially. I guess I'd have to see his situation.
Guess that's where if you DFA him or use a major league option or minor league option on him, is that part of the contract that we could send you down, or he can opt out and choose free agency? Is it one of those types of options? Regardless, I am officially declaring it's a minor league option. I'm declaring, Rich, that you and I call this the Joey Wendell contract going forward. That every year there's a Joey Wendell,
the honorary
Joey Wendell roster spot. Because you're right, I forgot Nick Madrigal existed on this team. The chat is saying he has one minor league option left.
Okay.
So he has an option if they want to send him down. I listen. Either Carson Bench lights it up in spring training and is your everyday left fielder to start the season, or he has a lukewarm spring training and starts in AAA. Maybe this is my hottest take of the pod so far. I want him to start the season in AAA. I want him. He did not do well at AAA last year. I want him to get 2-3 weeks, maybe even a month or two of just, I have mastered this level of the sport. I don't want him to have what happened to Brett Beatty, where he got called up, then sent down, and called up and sent down. I don't want the same thing to happen to Alvarez or to happen to Vientos. The famous name that I know both of us remember is Michael Conforto. Got called up for a World Series run, looked great to start the following season, then faced Madison Bumgarner once and then couldn't hit anything and got sent down, and then didn't start the following season, 2017, with a major league roster spot or position in the lineup reserved for him just yet, and had to earn his way back into the lineup with every chance he got to play, and ended up making the All-Star team as the Mets' lone representative in 2017. Look, I just want Bench to have the best path to success. Is my that's all. Rich.
Oh, you started to freeze up a little bit.
Oh no.
On your end, Andrew. Yeah, your video is stuck at an unfortunate frame. The fun.
Am I back?
You are somewhat back. I can hear you. You're still pretty frozen and choppy, but this is what happens with the live broadcast sometimes. Try to get Andrew back up there. But yeah, I mean, I think it makes completely valid sense for the reasoning to just be like, hey, like, I don't want to rush Bench. He actually really, really struggled in AAA last season. I think, I wouldn't be upset if they let Bench kind of slow play things next year, really get his feet wet at that AAA Syracuse level, and just wait to bring him up for when he's fully ready to go. And just like really, really seasoned down there. I think Andrew's still working on getting back. But yeah, so if MJ Melendez is making the opening day roster and Bench starts the season at AAA, I think that's totally fine. And again, if Bench starts playing well, if Melendez really struggles, obviously if somebody gets hurt at some point, that can change really quickly. And they, looks like the Mets will have some optionality with Melendez too. If he's struggling, and, they could just send him down to AAA and bring up Benj and not have to, boot him out of the organization quite yet. Hopefully that should be a pretty easy, flexible situation for them. While Andrew's working on getting his way back, I think I will read some of the chats that we have. Obviously, we had the one from Green Mystique that we just went through. This one is from this is a heck of a name. Biscuits _ Chooch says, I remember listening to Bob Murphy and Gary Thorne, and eventually Gary Cohen joined Bob. Yeah. I always think one of the cool things about being a Mets fan is there's really only a couple of TV eras that you had with the broadcast booth, right? Where you have, a lot of people bring up Bob Murphy, like the older fans. You'll hear a lot of people bringing up Ralph Kiner as well on Kiner's Corner. Gary Thorne in that 90s, early 2000s period. And then, this kind of Gary, Keith, and Ron era that we've had over these last 20 years now. It's been this will be the season 21 of that. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool to have those different eras of the Mets booths. And I'm not ready to give up on this one yet, but I know that eventually when we transition, it'll probably be good, just historically speaking. Welcome back, Andrew.
Am I good? Am I clear?
You are fully back now.
Okay. I look forward to seeing what face I was frozen on, but thank you for the heads up when it happened. Just to close the loop. I want Ben to start in AAA. We'll see what happens in the in spring training. Chat saying don't forget Fran Healy. Yeah, that's my initiation to baseball. It was Fran Healy and Howie Rose on the call on Mets games during the week, and then on the weekend you got Gary Thorne and Tom Seaver on Channel 11. Then
That's the booth that called the David Wright barehanded catch in San Diego. That's
Yes, it
one thing I
was.
always remember about that clip is that when I first saw it, I was like, oh, who are these guys? They don't sound like the regular guys that I listen to on SNY.
Well, so here's where I'm gonna go full nerd here. The booth that called it was Fran Healy that was on the call for David Wright's barehanded over the shoulder. The name I was gonna say that was only in baseball for a couple years with the Mets for a couple years was Tom Robinson. That was the guy who called the over the shoulder David Wright catch, which one of the more forgotten plays of David Wright's career, even if it's arguably the actual quality of catch would be the best catch I've ever seen because of its uniqueness of not choosing to use your glove. Yeah, I echo. Did you say the name Biscuits Chooch?
Yeah.
Okay, I echo Biscuits Chooch, and I am happy that we've got some consistency now, and we'll see what happens when Keith is no longer here. CJ Jets fan or CT Jets fan, Connecticut Jets fan, retired Jason Bay's number. Do you remember his number, Rich?
44.
44.
Blasting's Millage or 44. I think Tim Redding might have worn 44.
Is any Met currently wearing number 44 is the question.
I don't think so. John Buck wore 44. I remember him having one of the most fun Aprils of all
Met
time.
wore number 44 last year. Do you know who it was?
Can you give me, is it a position player or is it a pitcher?
It was a pitcher, and it was one of the many pitchers that David Stearns brought into the organization.
44 pitcher.
Just get a couple outs for a day and then left.
Oh man,
this is a who's who, by the way, of Mets who've worn.
I don't think I don't think it's Rico Garcia.
It's not.
Is it Alex Carrillo?
No, but you're in the same vein of like random pitcher that called up for a couple innings.
Who was 44?
Austin Warren.
Oh, he came to my mind, but I remember Warren was actually solid anytime they used him, and I for some reason didn't remember 44. Because anytime I see 44, I think it's a cursed Mets number because of Jason Bay. That was one of the first really big free agent signings they had when I was a fan. And the fact that he wound up being terrible was so confusing and heartbreaking for me.
So can you just go through this list of number 44s? So Harrison Bader, a beloved Met for a season, fourth outfielder, then went to the Phillies, became... a bit of a Mets killer unnecessarily, and now he's a San Francisco Giant because we haven't really talked about this. As frustrated at times and then exhilarated at times as we were with the Mets offseason, it's allowed me to be thankful for the activity and the desire just to not run it back that David Stearns set out to do. Like, I appreciate the Mets and the offseason that they've had, even if I have some criticisms, but I also can appreciate them just wanting to be different, right? Being able to laugh at the run it back Yankees and the run it back Phillies has actually been a nice and welcome change and development. The healthy place that I laughed at from when I saw the Goldschmidt signing. Like, they actually ran the entire thing back. It's the only move they made was no Devin Williams, no Luke Weaver, and we'll bring in David Weathers' son from the Marlins. Like, that's the Yankee offseason. And the Phillies, it's like we brought back JT Realmuto and lost Harrison Bader. The end.
And they lost Ranger Suarez.
And they lost Rangers, so even worse. Their pitching got worse. Yeah.
They kept Schwarber and Realmuto, but they only brought back Realmuto because they blew the Bo Bichette deal. And then they who knows what Zach Wheeler is going to be like coming off thoracic outlet. I don't even know if he's starting the season or not. I'm not sure what his situation is actually. You bring back Schwarber. He's awesome. He's not going to hit 59, 60 home runs again, but he'll be really good. You replace Nick Castellanos still somehow on that roster for now. You brought in Adolis Garcia, who's a total dart throw at this point. He's been really bad the last 2 years since they won the World Series in Texas. You lost Harrison Bader.
Signed Adolis Garcia. to a 1 year, $10 million.
That's what I just said.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Brad Fear now just put it in the chat. I didn't know if you said it or not.
Yeah, so I'm sure Castellanos will be gone just because they're not going to have both of those guys on the roster. I mean, I think
they might. They might
stick it to Olsen center and Castellanos and right. Oh boy. Yeah. So
they needed their Brandon Nimmo. They needed a Brandon Nimmo to just unlock their offseason. It sounds like.
And they didn't have it because the team's run by Dave Dombrowski, and he's not going to wave the white flag because there's no other side for him. He's not rebuilding this when it's all done. He will ride this as long as he possibly can. And yeah, the Yankee thing is funny too. I don't know if you saw on Twitter today, there was not a stink, just a John Boy tweet where they had to make note that Luke Weaver showed up to Mets camp with a Yankee duffel bag today.
Mets couldn't send him a new bag.
I'm sure he got it when he showed up today.
When he got here. Okay. So that's a paparazzi frustration then.
Yeah, or just like,
who cares?
Who gives a crap?
Yeah,
like
who cares?
No Met fan who was looking at what Paul Blackburn showed up with at Yankee Stadium last summer. Yeah, when Paul Goldschmidt signed the other day, I texted one of my best friends who's a Yankee fan. It was just like, so they're really running the whole thing back, huh?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, when you can bring back the team that lost in 4 in the ALDS, you have to do it.
I think the fascinating part about that is like, I actually agree with John Boy Jake. We're talking Jake. Like, this was a good team last year. There was a very good Yankee team. Won the exact same number of regular season games as the Toronto Blue Jays, but lost the tiebreaker. They beat the Red Sox and lose in 4 to the Blue Jays, right? The case could be made if you're Cashman that like a bounce here, a bounce there. They scored a lot of runs in that Blue Jays series. They just didn't pitch well, and you've got some pitching coming back. The post-deadline version of the Yankees was very good. Let's run that team back. And Jake was like, if they just lose that second game to the Red Sox, go out like losing 2 to a Red Sox team that was just kind of happy to be there, they probably have wholesale changes to the offseason and have the offseason the Mets had, and just they don't decide to run it back. Would they have been better off losing to the Red Sox is the dark place that he went to. And I was like, you know what? You're probably right. And I've never been more thankful for a Yankee win over the Red Sox than this version that gave us the run it back Yankees. And every group chat that I'm in being very frustrated at what could end up being the correct move, but still not meeting the certain standards of a certain fan base. This whole rabbit hole started with Harrison Bader, former Yankee and former Met, who wore number 44. The other names on this list, Rich, Robert Gazelman, old friend Robert Gazelman, who I guess switched to number 44 in 2021. Rene Rivera, longtime backup catcher for the New York Mets. AJ Ramos, he when he was here. Jason Vargas, shout out to Tim Healy and I guess Mickey Callaway, and John Mayberry, who wore number 44 for the beginning of 2015. It is symbolic, his exit in 2015 from the New York Mets, because the moment the Mets DFA'd him, I believe it was right after they traded it for both Wani Uribe and Kelly Johnson, 2 vital bench pieces during their run in 2015. Where I'm going with this is the line of demarcation was they got rid of John Mayberry, and then the season took off. Now, granted, they traded for 2 bench pieces, got Yoenis Cespedes, got Tyler Clippard. Like, they actually upgraded the team. Right, like they actually got better baseball players in instead. But that's what I will remember John Mayberry as when I do a name association. And then John Buck, the other catcher that they acquired in the R.A. Dickey trade, is the other more notable name from that war number 44. My internet's good. Just checking real quick before we go to the next question. So we got 2 from we got 1 from Green Mystique. I think this is actually a good place to end. With the Brewers trading away all their third basemen today, Would you guys do Vientos for Trevor McGill? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know if they would.
Unfortunately, they have to say yes.
Yeah. I don't know if they do that. But yes, I would absolutely do Vientos for Trevor McGill. Trevor.
It was weird. Part of me wondered today when I saw that news this morning. I was like, they're going to have Jet Williams play third base? Is he factor in there at all? Or
maybe,
are other people getting moved around? I'm not sure.
Do you think Jet Williams... That's a great... Actually, the part of that I didn't even consider was...
Would he make the Brewers?
Yeah, opening day roster. Are they thinking he's similar to Benj, like he's a quick call-up? He finished the season with the Mets in AAA. Also, like Carson Benj, not very good in AAA. But this is a guy that profiles to hit a lot. So, man, I guess we'll see.
Brewers love short guys, too.
I will say, Rich, because I've obviously this offseason, as I've tried to become a baseball guy, started to listen to some of the team podcasts and listen to some of the national pods. Vientos gets referred to as a third baseman on every pod that isn't a Mets podcast. But like all the good Mets podcasts all refer to him as a DH that can play third base, but is probably more a first baseman at this point. And I'm hearing the noise and him being referred to at like the Section 10 guys. Like if I could, I'd rather have Vientos instead of Beatty if we're trading JD. And it's like, yeah, not JD, Jarren Duran. If we're trading Jarren Duran, I guess JD is technically Jarren Duran. I would also want you to trade us Jarren Duran for Vientos instead of Beatty. I personally would lean Beatty be kept over Vientos. I tell you, man, that playoff run that he had, I just think has been ingrained into the national perspective more than anything else. I don't know how you feel.
I mean, I think what we need to do is Mets podcast is to all band together and start calling Mark Vientos a third baseman and let everybody else know that. We'll get Jolly and Jerry from Shea Station. We'll get Connor and Joe from the Mets pod. We'll get the guys from Metsed Up. We'll teach them how to say Luis Robert.
Mark and James, Mr. Robert over there.
Yep. And we'll all be in cahoots together and collude until somebody trades way too much for Mark Vientos, and then we can go back to calling him a DH.
We got to use the full title. Postseason hero, third baseman Mark Vientos. That's exactly what you want in playing
the
third
David
base
Freese of the 2024 postseason.
Bingo. Where would the Mets have been that postseason without Mark Vientos?
Honestly, though, he was
where would
awesome.
they have been without Mark Vientos? This is a fair thing to say with how good he was that season.
Hit a grand slam in the NLCS.
Come on. Who's ever done that? Yeah,
the Mets haven't.
I'm going to assume, Rich, that the major league teams also evaluate Vientos as more of a DH than a third baseman.
I would certainly think so.
So that's
or maybe I could see teams talking to themselves into him being a first baseman, but not third base.
At this point, there's just
not
too much film out there. I guess. Look. Okay, if you have, and this is how the Mets made it work. If you have such a dynamic shortstop that can cover so much ground, Vientos does have a good arm. It's the slow roller that more scares you than anything else, and I guess the ball to his left or right. But if you're playing him near the line,
range thing.
Oh yeah, like he has first base range. He did have an arm, I will say that. So if you just play him deep and in the corner, and you have a shortstop cover everything, then I guess that's not a terrible defensive alignment. Or like the 2024 Mets, you just punt on third base defense and replace it late in games when the leverage gets higher. I would be shocked if. Go ahead.
It's also easy to get away with the defense he had in 2024 when you've got an OPS that's getting close to the 900 and you're hitting piss missiles all over the place.
Which we haven't really talked about Vientos and how he factors into this year's team. I think as the spring training continues, I think we'll have a clearer picture of the Mets' plan for that. But I don't want to say this is similar. Well, it's not similar to the actual output of Rafael Devers, but I'm of the mentality personally. I hope he never sees his glove. Like, I hope he doesn't know what his glove looks like. I think he's a DH. I think he should be in the lineup to mash lefties and be a DH for the New York Mets this upcoming season. So who plays first base? They signed a second baseman that also DH to play first base. Like, I think it's a Jorge Polanco conversation. And I will also add, I can't believe I'm saying this, but Brett Beatty probably has the leg up on other capable infielders because of how well he transitioned to second base and showed the range there. As a result, I'm assuming he could play first base with the range to cover a lot more ground that obviously you didn't have with Pete and you won't have with Vientos. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I want to see Brett Beatty play first base, third base, second base, left field this year. I want to see him play all those positions this year. And if the Mets are keeping him on the roster and they want to fully utilize him to his maximum potential and he's hitting enough to justify the fact that they're doing that, like, they should fully take advantage of that versatility. And look, they're having a gamble here and rolling the dice with the first base thing because it's going to be Polanco, who's never played first base, and probably Beatty, who's also never really played first base, and hoping that they're both adequate at it and better than Pete Alonso was last year. But I think I'm at the point where, I mean, spring training has officially started. The Mets pitchers and catchers reported today. Their first workouts on Wednesday, so like we're here. I don't think the Mets are bringing in any first baseman at this point. I think we're past that point of like trading for Yandy Diaz or trading for Christian Walker. Maybe we see that stuff at the trade deadline if one of these guys doesn't work out at the position. But I think this is the team. So, I mean, I really thought they were lying about the Polanco at first base thing, but it looks like that's really what they're going to do here. And Beatty will play a little bit. And other than like emergency situations, I don't see much of a reason to stick Vientos there unless you have to.
Look, if Pete Alonso can't play first base, again, the not Pete Alonso plan at first base. And this was a question from Nick Teodoro, who just asked, so who plays first base? And we've answered this in our 2026 premonitions. Who will play the most innings at first base in 2026? And my answer, I maintain, not Pete Alonso. That's the only plan that David Stearns had for first base, not Pete Alonso. Nick also adds, I mean, if they somehow get 35 homers, 125 RBIs, and a 300 average at first base, I am okay with any platoon, including you two at the position. I will not be hitting 300 nor hitting anything close to 35 or 120. I'll give you like a solid. I'll make some contact. I need like a 2-month stretch to get back in baseball playing shape. I think Rich would echo the same sentiment. Says, love the show, guys. Thank you, Nick. All this to say, where I was going with this, in the not Pete Alonso plan can also be like Mark Vientos if he's hitting. You know, like if you're just fine not having the same range as Pete Alonso or having the exact same range as Pete Alonso and a worse scoops, like he's not able to scoop as well as Pete Alonso was able to pick it at first base. And then you also get the bat that you got in 2024 from Vientos, which honestly was about as good as Pete Alonso was the last 2 years. And now he's hitting behind Juan Soto and Bo Bichette and Francisco Lindor. I mean, it could happen. Yeah, look, we'll eventually, maybe soon, do a pod about like the biggest questions going into spring training. I am curious what first base looks like this year. You have very little experience from anybody on the roster at first base. So they're going full Scott Hatteberg. They're going full Moneyball with the plan for first base, and we'll see if that ends up being a good plan, you know? Any final thoughts, Rich, before we wrap? Good to be back, by the way.
It's good to be back.
Yeah.
We'll be putting out more regular episodes from here on out at this point, so stay tuned for that. Fun to do a live one of these that wasn't an emergency live stream. Seems like we've had our fingers crossed our last emergency live stream for a couple of months.
Oh, real quick, we got a question. I think it's a good question too. CT Jets fan, are they keeping Senga? Are you officially ready to call it?
I'm not gonna call it yet, but I am kind of like, I was thinking about this yesterday randomly. Just like, I saw him on TV. He's shaved. He doesn't have a goatee anymore. So that popped up on Twitter, and I was like, are they really gonna keep him after all that? I mean, he's there. He's at camp. It is possible. I'm not gonna fully jump off of it yet, but he might just stay on the team, which, I mean, that's as shocking of a guy to not move if that's the case. At least for me, I was on this all winter long and have not been correct about it so far.
So there was a radio host in Pittsburgh that went on the radio last week, I think it was. I think it was last week. And said something along the lines of, I pulled up one of the quotes. There are teams that like Brett Beatty and Mark Vientos, especially Brett Beatty. Oh, that's also Sammon said that. But basically said the Mets and Pirates have engaged in discussions, right? And all of us were like, what does that mean? Is this like lower level person for other lower level person? Is this Beatty and Vientos for Skeens? Like the range of discussions or trade discussions is wide. Where I went with that is like the only thing I want from the Pirates is pitching, and I don't know that there's anything in their bullpen that they'd be willing to part with at this point that I'd want to part with any significant piece for. All that to say, look, we said it when we had the first conversation in the offseason. We said it when we first had the plans and what we could do with the pitching staff. I gotta say, Rich, the different aces that were on the roster, the Senga, Minaya, Clay Holmes. I guess Clay Holmes not an ace, but like the guys that were aces in the past that are still here, like David Peterson. We're just kind of running the pitching as far as we're concerned. It's Freddie Peralta and then run it back with hopefully better outcomes than what we got last year, you know?
Yeah. And getting that full season out of Nolan McLean and TBD out of, what factor does Jonah Tong play down the road? And hoping that that's better than it was last year. And, in theory, it kind of moves everybody down 2 slots because McLean wasn't there very long. Had he been there earlier, they would have made the playoffs. They only missed by virtue of a tiebreaker. And, how many games did they lose throwing anything out there on that 5th day of the rotation, whether it was Montas or the Montas replacements? So, yeah, I thought maybe they would bring in 2 guys. It looks like it's just going to be the one, but the one was a high-end guy. Skubal wasn't attainable this winter, so they got the second best guy they possibly could have, and hopefully it's gonna work out. I think they were dealt a lot of bad luck last year, so they're owed a little nice bounce there, and I do think that they're better than they were on paper going into last year for sure.
I can't argue that they aren't at this point. The big takeaway this offseason is the Mets got better. I'm CT to your question. Are they keeping Senga? I think we can officially declare that they will. But listen, the other part about the Rich had to step aside for a second, by the way, those watching. The other part about the offseason and that article and the tell-alls to David that David Stearns gave to Sammon and to Joel Sherman. A lot of stuff we heard this offseason, and as Rich returns, a lot of stuff we heard this offseason that was Just complete nonsense. Like the things they said. Remember when Jeff McNeil was going to platoon with Paul Goldschmidt at first base for the New York Mets? And now
that might be the Yankees lineup in July
when they trade for Jeff McNeil. Yeah. At this point, I think, and I was talking to somebody about this over the weekend because they were asking me how Just Mets was going, and I was like, this being a bit of a fact-finding offseason for us, too, of like what it's like to cover from a podcast standpoint a baseball offseason.
Right.
And whereas, like, obviously I have my basketball, the basketball coverage muscles are, I have it down, it's on autopilot at this point, where I know we have, once the Knicks season's over, there's a couple weeks of the draft, then, like, a couple weeks of draft coverage, a couple weeks of free agent coverage. Then the draft happens. A week later, free agency happens. Everybody signs. Like, there's no, like, wait to see where Framber Valdez goes. Like, within days, everybody's gone. We all go to Summer League. It's really hot. And then we break for 2.5 months. With baseball, it's like the World Series ends, and then we just all wait for these tiny nuclear bombs to go off throughout the there's no break.
Drip,
it's just,
drip.
It's literally coffee, slow brewing throughout an entire offseason, throughout the winter. So all that to say, like, all the coulds that were reported, like the Mets could, this team could, that team could, this agent, this player could. I think we just have to learn for next season. We ignore coulds. No could reports next offseason. I'm just not falling for it. You know what could happen? What does happen? What did happen? And what did happen is apparently the Mets are keeping Kodai Senga on the roster next season.
Still waiting on that Mets-Padres trade.
Yeah, really. Oh my gosh. That's the other thing. The Padres were not mentioned once in the Sherman article. I believe Sammon did. I haven't read it in a minute, but I believe Sammon said they talked. Listen, what I said on the Freddie Peralta emergency live stream, if they're not done, do you call and say Jonah Tong for Mason Miller? And just like, that's how you cap off the offseason. Although I agree with Nick from earlier. Give me Vientos for Trevor McGill. Let's sign it. I'll call it in for you, guys. Okay, now any final thoughts, Rich, before we get out of here?
No, I think we've capped it off. Yeah, we'll be back with more regular episodes from here on out. Honestly, I don't think there will be a ton to talk about next week. Maybe we'll do one of our, we have all these canned ideas that we yet to run through for the off season. So maybe we can do some fun games or trivia or evergreen stuff next week and talk about whatever happened to the first week of camp, which I don't think will be super eventful.
Well, so this is where I'll just remind you, and I'll now announce to everybody, I will be in Florida next week because it is so cold. My goodness, is it so... The best part about the Super Bowl ending and now pivoting to really focus on baseball is, of course, that we love this team and we love talking about them on a semi-regular basis. The second and potentially 1A is that I get to start thinking warm thoughts. This has been one of the more brutal winters that I think any of us in New York have experienced.
At least in a while.
Not to dox you, but you're also in the city, and no disrespect to colder places north of us, you don't have the wind currents that are created when big buildings are you know what I'm saying? Science.
It's been cold.
It's been cold, man. And like I went to Jersey this weekend and just stepped outside we stopped for Starbucks on the way up to our destination. And I immediately was like, I regret this decision. I regret not getting Starbucks. I regret going outside. Like outside bad has been the theme. So I'm very much like Rich. I'll just take you guys behind the scenes. I've been checking this periodically whenever I get cold, just like what's the weather in my destination. And I'm just, look at that. That's what's in store for me. Look at that 7. Look at that 7.
Is it even 7 degrees out right now?
I think we got 20s, but the feels like is more we're at a feels like of hold on. We had a feels like of -10 last week.
Good Lord.
Yeah, it feels like 22. So it's a heat wave right now here in the Big Apple. At least where I am.
The low is 7, so there's that.
This weekend was not fun. Regardless, I will be thinking
No.
warm thoughts next week, but over the next 2.5 weeks, month and a half, we will be thinking warm thoughts as we get ready for opening day for the Pittsburgh Pirates and who knows what big trade is coming because of the according to that radio host in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
But we're happy to be back, and thank you for joining us for another edition of the Just Mets podcast. If you dug it, like this video, remember to subscribe. If you're listening, Apple, Spotify, leave a 5-star rating and a review. I haven't checked in a while. Rich, do we have anything new over on iTunes or on Apple?
I'll take a look real quick. I know we had one last time we did this, but I think that's the last one we've got.
So as we've said, if you do leave us a 5-star rating, we will read it live here on the air. Happy to do that. And follow us on all socials. And as always, please subscribe to the Just Mets newsletter. It's free. It's every day. The crew, the team does really good work, making sure it's available to you every morning and up to the date and very accurate and very well written. So shout out to Michael and the entire Just Mets writing team. And until next time, Rich, first of all, good to see you. Good to be back. F Boston into oblivion. And in the words of the immortal Gary Cohen, we are out of here.